What's up, guys? Army-Firedawg is back again, and today, finally, I have the review time for you of the SoundPEATS Q32. This is a product that they sent me, quite a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, in fact. And I've used it for my annual training, so I've used it for studying, working out, and I'm very excited to finally bring my thoughts and opinions to, well, the review. And as always, let's start with the construction of which, and then work my way down from there. So the construction, as you can see, is it's very small and slim. It's about the size of the tip of your finger. If you can kind of see that, it's about as thick as it is. It is very flush with your ear, but I'll touch more on that in the comfort section. And in terms of build quality of itself, it's all a plastic build. It's a very basic style of plastic, but for a product that's sub $50, yeah, I wouldn't really expect too much. Now, the horn is just the most universal style shape. I don't know the exact measurements or anything like that. It's just what I see on the vast majority of in-ear monitors I see is this horn size. So for those of you who want to use external tips, or if you've already have tips, you just want to mix and match, you should have very little, if any, issues putting tips on these. Now, on the notes of tips, these actually came with a very large assortment of the standard tips, which is on here, and wing tips, which is the same thing as this right here, except for it has a wing coming up from it. I did really like using the wings, especially for working out. However, I very quickly just switched back over to the standard tips because, surprisingly, these stayed in my ear almost as good as the wing tips did. However, when you have the wing tips equipped, these will not fit in the charging case. As you can see, there is a very little room for error. It's just a magnetic clip, and then that's as far as it goes. When the wing tip is on, it actually blocks the sensor right there and here, so it will prevent that connection. That's actually what charges the earphones. That's about all for the construction of which. There's really not too much to it. I guess I forgot to mention that there, of course, like you saw, there is no cable that connects the two of these. These are truly wireless. There is no wire anywhere in this. The charging case itself is also just a basic package. However, it is very protective. This thing has unfortunately been dropped a few times, and as you can see, there's no damage to it. So I probably consider myself a lucky one, but these can handle a drop. At least for me it has. Now, moving on to the comfort. Now, the comfort of which, a short section, but I personally had no issues whatsoever with the comfort. They are very flush, as I showed earlier, with your ears, and they also isolate very well. As you can see, so they do fit kind of flush. They protrude just a little bit, and with that, I was actually able to lay on my side with these in my ears. Now, I did have to adjust my pillow just a little bit to not directly push on them, but I was able to reasonably comfortably wear these laying on my side, which is a very nice feature to have. If I'm going to be wearing an earphone, I at least want to be able to move and be comfortable with them. They also don't weigh much at all. I don't know the exact weights, but I forgot they were in my ear. Now, for my 2-hour study sessions, now I do know they went for at least 2 hours back when I was doing my hazmat tech training and mobile water supply and etc. training. We would do our studies, and the battery on these would die. And I guess I can kind of go ahead and start tying in the features, which is the next setting, into the comfort. The features is, first and foremost, yes, it's a true wireless. There's no cable. The other one is it comes with a charging case. Now, the battery life on this case is absolutely absurd. During my 2 weeks of training, I had to charge the Q32s several times throughout the 2 weeks. At least once a day, sometimes twice, from dead to full. Not once did I personally have to charge this case. Not once. It consistently, from dead to full, charged the Q32s, like I said, at least once a day, sometimes twice. So the battery life on the case, wonderful. In that same tone, the battery life of the Q32s, not so much at all. The website claims that they get about 3 hours of working time. Now, me personally, I barely got over 2 hours consistently. I did always get 2 hours, but it was usually somewhere between 2:15-ish or so. Now, for your average listener, 2 hours is going to be more than enough time. Admittedly, it really is. But for me, I listen to music a lot for a long periods of time. Especially when I'm reviewing a product, I easily put 4, 5, 6 hours of listening into them a day to make sure I really understand how they sound. Only having a product with 2 hours of battery life kind of sucks. However, for what these are geared towards, that's roughly what you're going to get, which is just your commuter listener, a person who's going to work out, or someone who just wants to listen to these as they're taking a phone call or on break, etc. This is not an audiophile earphone. This is just a general use consumer earphone. So in that respect, 2 hours is going to be plenty. I had 2 big issues with them. The first off is that these did actually cut in and out of connection fairly commonly. Way more so on my PC than my phone. It, like, over a few minutes or so, it would just cut in and out for about a second. And it would just, one ear would get the signal back, and then it would transfer to the other ear, which is how these actually connect. These connect, like, say, I'll use this one. This one's connected to the computer or phone, and then this one is connected to this one. So it'll connect to here, then transfer to this one. Every time it has to reconnect itself, that's what you're going to hear. I can get past the battery life, but for it to consistently cut in and out like that, that's kind of annoying. Again, for your average listener, I'm sure they'll get used to it. Even I did, because it does immediately reconnect just like that. It doesn't have to search, it just loses signal and then comes right back in within a second. So it's not too bad, but it's consistent enough. It's kind of a down thing. The second one I have, and this one I keep going back and forth if the connection issue is worse or this one, and it's the lack of aptX technology. Now, I do understand having that is an expense in and of itself, and they wanted to keep the cost of these cheap. Like I said, they're sub $50. But without the aptX, for me, I stopped watching anything with these in my ears because the latency on the conservative side, in best case scenario, was around a half a second. However, there have been times where the latency or the delay between them saying something or doing something and me hearing it has been upwards of 1 second at the most. Usually it's somewhere between the 3/4 of a second or so, which doesn't sound like a lot, 3/4 of a second. However, that is absolutely irritating when you're seeing mouths move or you're seeing something being done, and it takes that delay for you to get it. So for those of you who are wanting to watch like a show or something with these in, not going to do you too good. At least for me personally, I couldn't deal with that latency, so the only thing I ever did with these is just listen to, whether it be music or a podcast or whatever have I been doing. Now, moving on to the sound quality. So how do these actually sound? SoundPEATS is actually a sister company of Dudios, so I thought these would just be a true wireless version of the Zeus. Absolutely not the case. Overall sound of the SoundPEATS, I will say, going back to they're not an audiophile earphone, they're just a general use, something to listen to as you're commuting to work and work out with. That is going to be the case with the 32s, because the soundstage is actually pretty small, and the imaging is, that you're, never once when I was listening to these did I have to close my eyes, or did I have to imagine anything. No, I always knew I was listening to earphones. Nothing came out of head. So the imaging is acceptable, but again, this is something I'm going to listen to when I'm just needing some background music to listen to. Now, going on to the individual aspects of that, the treble, I really can't say I like the treble at all. Especially for a V-shaped sound curve, I figured the treble would actually be pretty nice. The best way I can describe the treble is it is subdued without being recessed. As in, it doesn't sound like it's on backstage at all, but it definitely doesn't shine or sound as good as I know it could. And there's a couple pieces I like to listen to. They're very classical pieces, so they're linked in my full written review, which is in the description. It's a violin and piano piece, and it just didn't sound like I knew it should. Like, I never got the energy. It just sounded like stuff was playing. I was just playing music through earphones. It's like it maxed these out. There was especially a point in one of the songs, and again, I mentioned which one it was in the written review, that it just sounded off. There was when it got a lot, the violin was getting really aggressive, the piano was going at it. it just sounded like this couldn't keep up, and notes just kind of started sounding off. And then when it slowed down, then it came back to being normal. Now, moving on to the mids. The mids, surprisingly, for a V-shaped sound, they do sound recessed in the sound stage, but they sound very clean. And you can have a good laugh. It's a funny video to watch, but True Survivor by David Hasselhoff is actually a good song I've found as of recently, and it's a great test for vocals. He really focuses on his own voice throughout the song. All the instrument is in the background, so it really focuses on his words. And through the SoundPEATS Q32, he came through very good, like very clean. Now, moving on to the bass. The bass is quite impactful. They're still not a bassy or a bass heavy product, but at least from my point of view, I was very satisfied with the bass punch that these were giving me. Another song that actually does a great job of showing the bass punch and its consistency, and it's a funny song, is Rasputin by, is it Donnie M? Or something along nature. It's in my written review. I can't think of the song off the top of my head or the artist. But it also shows the speed, impact, decay, and control of the bass, all with these. It's actually a really good song I want to start using for other reviews as well, because it tests all of those. And it's a funny video to watch. But the bass on here, like I said, is very impactful. There is a good bit of decay, in which, that's just because, again, sub $50, I wasn't expecting too much. But the impact was definitely there. So for those of you who like to listen to rock or metal or stuff along with the hard bass punch, I think you'll be pretty satisfied with the SoundPEATS Q32. So, in conclusion, guys, my final thoughts on the Q32 is that these are not an audiophile product. They're not. I don't think they're marketed to be, at least for when I was looking at its website. I never got this is an audiophile product vibe. This, from my personal experience and what I've gathered from looking at it, this is for a general consumer who is looking for something to just pick up, grab, and listen to on their way to work, whether it be a Bluetooth device to listen to. I forgot to mention earlier, if you're only wanting to talk on the phone, or anytime you're talking on the phone, it will automatically only cut out to one earphone. So even if you have both of these in your ear, if you're on the phone, audio will only come out of one ear. I personally didn't like that too much, but that's just a personal thing. Like I said, this is going to be something for the person who just wants something to listen to in the background, like be for working out, commuting, studying like I was doing. This is a great study piece because it's very lightweight, it's non-aggravating, it's comfortable to wear. It really is. The entire battery life, I never once had to readjust this, nothing. Very, very comfortable earphones to wear. And it's very inexpensive. Like I said, if you're just wanting a workout pair, that's, at least in my experience, it is sweat resistant. I mean, I never had any issue at all with, and I sweat a lot, with them falling out of my ear or getting fuzzy sound or thinking they're being damaged. I really think if you're looking for an earphone like that, I think you should look at the SoundPEATS. There's a few things I wish would improve on, like the connection and especially the aptX, but the aptX I can understand because they're wanting to keep the price low, but I hope they will release a software update. I hope that's all it is to fix the connectivity issues I have had with this. But guys, that is actually it for my review of the SoundPEATS Q32 True Wireless IEM. If you have any questions or if there's anything I may have missed, please hit me up in the comments down below. I will absolutely reply to each and every one of you. On a real quick note before I leave, if you are wondering where my XDSD review went, it's been brought to my attention from the rep and actually a couple commenters that says I didn't use the wireless function correctly. And I was aware of this. In the instructions, I put it into its line out mode. However, that's the only way I was able to get it to go into Bluetooth mode. Now, looking at it, the issue is that I held it down. However, if I would have held down the power button like I'm turning it on and continuously held it down for about 10 seconds, then it would have went from wired to wireless mode. This was not under the wireless Bluetooth section in the manual that I looked into. This was under the first section, the power option, or the power button. That is entirely my mistake for not paying attention to that. I just assumed it would be under the wireless section because it is turning it into wireless mode. Again, I own up to that. So in the meantime, until I get the unit back to have a try again period, I have hidden the video. Now, if I have indeed made the mistake, I will address that and correct my video. But if it is the same, then I'll just unlist it. But I want to let you guys know what was going on and say, hey, if I messed up, I want to own up to it and then fix it in the corresponding review. But that's where my review of the XDSD went, in case any of you all were wondering. But anyway, guys, as always, my name is Army-Firedawg. It has truly been a pleasure, but most importantly, and please I ask my friends, stay safe.